1. I work as a ranch hand on my girlfriend's family ranch out in the middle of cow country, USA. The closest town has a population of less than 300 just for scale. It's one of the larger ones in the immediate area, over several thousand acres and hundreds of cows. Most graze in the pasture, but there are always some that are fed hay in the barnyard. Unfortunately, we had run out of our stockpile, so we called around to find who had hay to spare, and I was quickly dispatched to fetch. The only place that had hay available was a family-run feed store and ranch, about halfway between us and what is the closest city. Even cattle country is not immune to sprawl, as farms are slowly turning into estates for bored Karens to move into with their high-priced lawyer husbands. This story involves just such a Karen. Our cast: me, a ranch hand, dressed in a stereotypically excessive amount of denim, with a Carhartt ball cap and work boots. Karen, your middle-aged white woman dressed to the gills in her English riding outfit, complete with riding crop and helmet. The type of woman to make her husband move to the country so she can ride her horse easier, but then get angry that the farm next door is too loud, what with all the farming and such. FYI, don't make a fool of yourself in such extremely small towns. No one has anything better to do than gossip, especially during COVID. Now that our backdrop is set, I'll get to the point. I had arrived at the feed store to pick up the hay. The store had already started to stack my order, 120 bales, outside for me, as this was going to take 3 trips to complete. I paid for the whole order, and the first and second trips went without issue. I was thinking it was going to be an easy day of stacking hay and driving, and that I would be done early. If only I knew what awaited me on my 3rd trip. I pulled my beat-up Sierra back into the feed store for the 3rd time that day. The sun hung low in the sky and beat down on my neck as I began to load my final bales. I'm sweating away the final hours of the day when a white Escalade EXT pulls down the dirt driveway. For those who don't know, it's Cadillac's attempt to turn an SUV into a pickup without changing any of the SUV parts. As anyone that's driven a proper utility and work truck will tell you, it's useless for anything but looking fancy and bragging that you have a pickup at the country club. At first, I paid no mind and keep loading my bales. It pulls up near my truck. After a pregnant pause, which I could only assume was to straighten her hair and touch up her makeup, Karen emerges from her useless mobile and proceeds to stare at me silently. I give her a nod howdy and keep loading my bales. After each bale, she stamps her fine leather boots in the dirt louder and louder. After 5 bales, Karen has had enough.
Why aren't you helping me? I would like to buy some hay.
No, but I'm sure someone inside can.
Load 10 of these into my not-a-pickup while I go inside to pay,
she said as she pointed at my yet-to-be-loaded pile. I tell her no, as they're my bales and I don't work at the feed store.
Yes, you do. You're the hand that loads them. Just do your job and stop being lazy.
She turns and stomps off inside, muttering about rude employees. How I was being lazy by loading my own bales, I'll never know. She reemerges as I'm loading the final bales from my pile onto the top of my truck. Seeing the pile gone and none on her pickup, she flies into a rage.
Why didn't you load mine? All you stupid rednecks are the same and don't know how to listen.
I'm a redhead and burn quite easily, so at that point in the day I did actually have a sunburn on my neck. She rushes up to me as I again tell her that I do not in fact work at the feed store. I throw the final bale onto the top of the stack on my truck. Loading complete, I brush past her and climb into my truck.
I won't let you leave till I get my hay!
She runs to her still empty 2WD pickup and drives into the mouth of the driveway and parks across it, blocking the entire entrance. She smugly looks at me from the driver's seat and yells,
"Now give me my hay!"
Now the driveway was flanked on either side by muddy ruts filled with rain from the night before. To a Karen, it would seem impassable, but to a rancher it's something you drive across multiple times on most days. As Karen sat smugly in the driver's seat thinking she'd bested me, I simply reached down and threw my truck into 4 high, gunned the motor, and drove through the mud to get around her, down the rest of the driveway, and onto the main road. The best part was that my front tire splashed the mud high enough to cover Karen herself, as she had left her window open and managed to get herself stuck as she tried to follow me down the drive. 2. I manage running a specialty store. Our return policy is pretty standard. Within 30 days, unworn, all sale items, final sale. But I basically always give store credit to customers who want to return a sale item, even though, strictly speaking, that's against the rules. That's still not good enough for some people. This particular lady, we'll call her PA, short for police adjacent, for reasons that will become clear, comes in one day and demands to speak with the manager. Always a good sign. She tells me that the last pair of shoes we sold her were way too big and completely wrong for her feet, that my staff member lied to her, and that she wants a full refund. She is carrying neither shoes nor a receipt. I ask PA if she has the receipt with her, and she says of course not, as she bought them several months ago and has long since thrown out the receipt. I explain that her return policy is 30 days. She says we have injured her with our poor advice and should refund her and or replace her shoes with something better. I ask what model she purchased, and when she tells me, I think, well, geez, that's the regular price shoe that we still stock. So if they're unworn, I'll do an exchange and or give her store credit just to get rid of her. Note that we make clear to customers that unworn actually means no visible wear, though it's totally fine to wear them around your house for a bit to make sure they're good. I ask her if she's worn the shoes outside, and she looks at me like I'm an idiot. Of course she's worn them outside. How else would she know if they work for her? I explain, again, our return policy and say that I'm sorry, but it's been more than 30 days, and she's worn them outside. There's nothing I can do. Her anger has been simmering since she walked in the store, and now it's begun a cascading nuclear meltdown. She starts yelling at me, first telling me that my staff member lied to her, that a particular model of shoe didn't come in a specific variant. We carry the model, but not the variant. So I explain with the straightest face as I can muster that while my staff are experts in the shoes we carry, that they can't possibly know everything about every shoe on the market. Then repeatedly saying that her sister is a cop and she's going to be telling her sister about the treatment by our store. I think this was supposed to be a threat, but it was such a complete non sequitur that I again had to struggle not to laugh. Somewhere in this process, I look up her purchase in the computer and find that not only did she buy these shoes 5 months ago, not the 1 or 2 she claimed, they are not the current model she claimed and were in fact last year's which were on sale. She bought them during one of our biannual blowout sales, which are the only times we enforce the all sale items are final rule. We put signs up and mention it to all customers before they pay. She still hasn't actually produced the shoes she wants to return. We have exactly 1 till in the store, and at this point I have other customers waiting to pay. I offer to have my area manager give her a call, but she refuses to leave her contact information, and instead wants his. Sorry, ma'am, we don't give that information out. Was apparently the incorrect answer. She mentions her sister, the cop, again. The waiting customers are getting fidgety and uncomfortable, completely reasonable, and the staff member, SM, for store mom, who had helped them, it was just us 2 working that day, comes over to see what's going on. SM is in her 50s, has been working here longer than anyone else, and is very protective of those of us who are on the younger side. I'm in my early 30s. Me being her manager has no bearing on these facts. PA sees SM, immediately assumes she's more in charge, ignores me completely, and begins her complaint from the beginning. By the way, in case you were wondering, her sister is a cop, while disparaging me and my atrocious customer service. SM has big mom vibes and is usually extremely patient and kind. But I can see that PA is bringing out her mama bear side. I quickly let her know that I can handle it and send her away. I tell PA again that I unfortunately cannot return her as yet unseen shoes, and that if she'd like to leave her information, our area manager will give her a call. She completely ignores me and restarts her complaint cycle. I interrupt her. Ma'am, I understand that you're upset, but there's nothing I can do. If you don't want to leave your information, you can also try calling customer service. I can write the number down for you if you like. Right now, though, I'm going to have to ask you to move away from the counter, as I have other customers waiting to pay. She leaves, cursing and grumbling. Cut to a week later, and my area manager calls me out of the blue to tell me that a customer has called customer service to complain about me. To my great delight, customer service was closed when she called, so she has to leave a voicemail. My AM plays it for me. In short, PA has the same baseless complaints as she did in the store. Her sister is still a cop, and we still hear about this, and she received horrible customer service from the
apparent manager who was like 18 years old.
And will never be shopping at any of our stores again unless they fix this problem for her. The manager was like 18 years old. I'm in my early 30s. I'd like to thank my good genes and my skincare routine for this great honor. Anyways, we didn't do the return. She never came back to our store. And when I'm feeling down about how I look, I stand in front of the mirror and quote her, and it never fails to give me a confidence boost. Oh yeah, and did I mention, her sister is a police officer. 3. I was standing in line to get into the supermarket today, and the person just before me was a surly older gentleman who was not wearing a mask or facial covering, and appropriately, wearing a biker jacket with a big patch that read, "Fuck helmet laws." The store has someone at the door, usually a teenager or an elderly greeter, whose job it is to ensure everyone entering the store has a face covering per their nationwide corporate mandate, and under our state law. As the man arrived at the greeter, who could not have been a day under 65, she said, "Excuse me, you need a face covering to enter." He said to the woman in his macho authoritative voice,
"No, I don't. It's okay,"
and tried to walk into the store.
"Actually, you do, sir. It's not just policy anymore, it's the law."
And he starts spouting off about how it's an unconstitutional law, and how the greeter isn't in a position to enforce the laws. A minute or two pass, and people further back who can't see what's happening at the front of the line are getting restless. They begin to try and see what's happening. The guy is saying,
"Look, you're holding the line. If the masks really do work, then everyone who's wearing one is safe, right? And if they don't, then why do you care?"
And she was getting kind of desperate at this point and said, "Well, sir, because I could lose my job if I let you in there." This is where I come in. I hadn't spoken up before because this was a big guy and I'm just a student who's no good in a confrontation. I figured adding myself to the mix would only make the situation worse. So I took out my phone and started recording. I figured he would be less likely to do something violent to the greeter or escalate further if he knew he was on camera. Here's what I had forgotten. I was wearing a shirt from a 5K that was sponsored by our local news, so had Channel X Eyewitness News in huge print across the front. The guy's wife goes,
"Good Lord, Howie, the news is filming. What if my work sees this? Jesus!"
So he turns to me and starts telling me that he doesn't consent to be on TV. And he starts making a speech about how we're treading on the Constitution, not respecting people's rights to bodily autonomy or privacy. I'm trying to tell him I'm not with the news, and he's like,
"I don't care if you're on the clock or not. I don't want to be on camera, and I won't be forced to wear anything I don't want to wear. When did we forget that this is America?"
Now this is where it got crazy. The line stretched all the way around the building, and people towards the end were realizing it hadn't moved in a while, and were coming up to investigate. An even bigger, more macho guy comes lumbering up and asks what the problem is, sees this guy going off at the terrified elderly greeter, me shaking, holding my phone, and is like, Sir, what's the problem right now? People are trying to shop." The maskless guy tells him, and I quote,
"Get away from me, this here isn't your business."
The more macho guy proceeds to whip out a badge and identify himself as an off-duty police officer, and that the law is in fact his business. First he tries to have the cop arrest me for putting him on the news without his consent, but I just played dumb at that point. My adrenaline was through the roof, and if I had been able to retain presence of mind, I would have left by that point and shopped somewhere else. The biker guy is now saying to the cop,
"This isn't what you went into the academy dreaming about, man, is it? You're not stopping bad guys, you're forcing regular people to go against their beliefs."
"No one is forcing you to do anything, sir. You're free to make your own choices. You can put on a mask or you can go home." Decide what you would like to do, because there is a line here.
The biker guy keeps saying that he isn't doing anything illegal, and that he has the right to shop in a public business. And the cop just shakes his head and starts quoting the official mask law that the guy is breaking at him. But the biker guy is just talking over him at that point, and the cop realizes he isn't getting anywhere. So the cop says,
Look, I don't want to escalate this, but you're not giving me a choice in this situation. If you won't leave of your own volition, you're trespassing.
And starts explaining what will happen. The biker guy is ready to stand firm and says he knows he's in the right, but his wife is smarter and says,
Jesus, Howie, are you insane? The man's a police officer!
And very ashamedly apologizes as she forces him to leave with various threats. Took nearly 15 minutes to get into the store, caused a major backlog of shoppers, and made a poor elderly woman fear for her safety. Just wear the mask or get your groceries delivered. I mean, seriously, people. Of all the hills to die on. 4. Context. I work at a fairly low-scale store, a step above a thrift store as we get either returns or overstock from other companies. Some cheaper business will buy from us, given our low prices, and either turn over what they bought or just buy stuff for parts. Now, we put out a fairly large selection of bikes, about 15 to 20 a day. Quality is always iffy, so we get asked a lot when we're putting out the next one. We usually try to stock the bikes either before we open or when the store is less busy, so we don't have people swarm us. For the sake of this post, I'll call the guy Josh. It's late in the afternoon, fairly slow, so not a lot of customers, so my manager asks me if I could get some bike skids from the back. Now, the one I brought out had some of the nicer bikes, the ones that are in boxes and are usually not missing parts. As I drop the skid, Josh comes up to me and asks if he could buy some of the bikes before they are properly put on the floor. I said he had to wait as store policy made sure that the bikes were in the proper place before they could be sold. He was okay with this, and waited patiently for me to unload. Before I go to the back, I'm asked by some of the other customers who saw me unload the skid if I had specific types of bikes. I told them I would check, and if so, bring some out. Personal note: a couple of the freight people, including myself at the store, hate when people come in and just buy all the good stuff in bulk. They'll come in, buy the expensive products that would sell anyway, and that's it. It just makes the store look like it doesn't get any good products, which frustrates me. And I get asked the same question 10 times a day, because some jerk came in and bought all the good stuff and left nothing for anyone else. I pick out the second skid, trying to get some bikes that the other customers wanted. Start moving away from the employees area, and as I round the corner, I run into Josh. He looks over the second skid and says, "I want these two," pointing to 2 of the better quality bikes. I told Josh that he had to wait and that he couldn't just pick the bikes out this time, since there were more people and everyone had to get a turn to view them, as it was against store policy to pick out stuff before they were even on the floor. He did this the entire way to the bike section, slowly getting on my nerves the whole way. Josh keeps pestering me, asking why not, while I was bringing the bikes up to the other customers, as he was a customer and it was my job to serve him. I just reiterate that it was against store policy and wouldn't be fair to the other customers. Now, when I finally went and tried to put the bikes on the floor and had to get help from another employee, as this time there was a bigger crowd and we had to have everyone stay 6 feet away per store policy, Josh would not listen and tried numerous times to grab the bikes from the skid or even out of our hand before they were properly put on the floor. He kept pestering us, asking why he couldn't just pick them up and buy them, having been told it wasn't fair to the other customers if somebody just grabbed the bikes and bought them without them getting the chance to see it. I wanted to punch him after that, as he had no respect for us employees, and thought that as a customer his word goes. Afterwards, I was asked about the incident from my manager, as he apparently complained about me to him. Later on, I found out that he owned a bike through my coworker that helped me, and probably bought the bikes for parts. 5. This happened last night. For backstory, my dad has a small hotel with 15 rooms and a bar and reception downstairs, and I work there every summer. The bar and reception works till 11, which I tell every guest that checks in, along with giving them keys to the back door since the main entrance is locked every night. That is the same thing I said to a guy, let's call him M, when he checked in yesterday afternoon. That was only after he made a scene because our rooms are advertised to be $60, and his bill was $62, because we are obligated to pay a fee to our country for every foreign citizen that stays there. But it wasn't my first time dealing with an a-hole customer, and I just apologized, offered a free dessert, and brushed it off. Yesterday it was 15 to 11, and I was getting ready to close, and only 2 tables being occupied in the bar, where one with 3 of my friends and one with 5 guys that work across the street and are regulars. I like them because since they're nice and tip well, and they like me because I often let them pick music, so we're friendly. So when they told me that one of them just became an uncle and they wanted to celebrate and to stay a little longer, I said sure, and gave them 2 beers each in advance. And they paid for them. Nothing in town works past 11, because the last corona measures have not been lifted yet, so they had nowhere else to go. My friends weren't in a hurry and said they would stay too, and I poured myself a beer and everyone paid. I closed the cash register and turned off the computer and the printer, knowing that I won't be printing any bills until the morning. I also washed everything and prepared for the morning shift except for the literal glasses we were using. I turned off the music and sat with my friends. Fast forward 1.5 hours. Everything is good. I'm having fun. I'm playing gin rummy with my friends, and those other guys are talking and having fun too. When M comes down from his room wanting to buy bottled water and sees me playing cards, he proceeds to tell me how unprofessional and lazy I am, how he will be sure to report to my manager tomorrow morning when he checks out, how I try to cheat him for $2 on the bill for his room, and some other ugly stuff. Now, I don't care what he thinks. I know I'm not doing anything wrong. But at that moment, I am intimidated because a man is towering over me and yelling, and I almost start to cry. What I don't see is 8 guys, 3 of my friends and those other 5 regulars, standing up behind me approaching, and asking him if he has some problem and why is he yelling. M calms down when he sees them, and says that there are no problems and he just wants to buy bottled water. I say that I work until 11 and it's long past it, and I can't sell anything since our cash register is electronic, and one can see at any moment at which times it was used, and if inspection were to come and see we were selling things past 11, we would be in trouble. He asks to speak with the owner, and I say that it is 1 a.m. and that he is sleeping. He is insistent, and I call my dad and tell him that a man insists on calling him since I refuse to sell him a bottled water. M now starts speaking, interrupting me, taking the phone from my hand, saying that I am playing cards instead of working, and my dad says so, she is sitting in a place her family owns, having fun with her friends, making no noise, and you came in a bar that was closed. M stutters, apologizing, finishing the conversation very quickly. This morning the guy that was working the first shift says M left a huge tip and demanded that it was shared with me. The worst thing is that our tap water is fine to drink, and it is written so next to the literal tap. He claimed that he didn't know that. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Adventures in Fast Food and Retail, number 95. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, a lot of silly people in this most recent of videos. I would like to say thank you to everyone who joined me as I was recording. I'm attempting to get done with the week's recordings early, so I can tidy up the garden and the like later in the week, and possibly just be a lazy pooper. But this is the first recording stream I've done for a while, so I'm very appreciative of everyone who's popped in to keep me company. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.